Okay, so now we want to be able to see all of our bookmarked properties, and that's going to be at this route right here, saved properties, which is properties/saved. Now the reason we're seeing this message is because we don't have this route created, so it's actually looking at this as an ID because we do have a route for /properties/ and then IDs. So it'll first check to see if we have this route. If we don't have that folder, then it'll use it as an ID, which obviously is not there, so we get not found. So let's create in app properties, we'll create a folder called saved. And in saved, let's create a file called page.jsx. And let's do RAFCE. We'll call this, what do we want to call this? Saved properties page. So now it should work, and there we go. So before we do anything here, as usual, I want to create the API route first. So this is going to be in API/properties. Actually, no, I'm sorry, bookmarks. You could put it in properties. It's really up to you on how you want to structure this. Since a saved property is a bookmark, then I think we should just put it in our bookmarks route.js as a GET request, right? Because we're getting bookmarks. Here, we're adding a bookmark. So let's just go right here and say get, this is going to be get/API/bookmarks, and we're going to export const get async. Okay, and then try catch. We want to connect to our database. So connect DB. And then we want to get the user ID. So I'm just gonna, well, we could check for the session, or we could just get the ID. I think we should probably check for the session. So let's just do what we've been doing, session. I'll just copy it from right here, actually. These 3 lines. Yeah, so we'll do that, and then let's see, we want to find the user because we got to get their bookmarks, so we can copy that from down here as well. So right under that, find the user in the database. Then we want to retrieve, let's say, get users bookmarks. So we can do that with, let's say, const bookmarks, and we can await, and we're going to use the property model and then find in the property model. Actually, I'm kind of torn on where I want to put this, because on one hand it is the bookmarks that we're checking, but ultimately it comes from the property collection. So I think we'll just keep it here, but if you want to move it to the properties folder, properties route, you can do that as well. So to get this, we're actually going to pass in some curly braces here, and then we want to match the underscore ID field, and then open up another set of parentheses, and we're going to use $in, and then user.bookmarks. Okay, so we're looking in the user's bookmarks array in the database to see if there's a property that matches the underscore ID in the property collection or in the property model. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Then we're going to return the response, and the response is going to be json.stringify, and we're going to pass in here the bookmarks. And then for the status is going to be 200. Okay, if something goes wrong, then let's console log the error, and let's return a response, we'll say 500, and then we're just going to return a string. and say something went wrong. All right, and that should do it. That should get the user's bookmarks. Now let's go back to the page, and we're going to import a bunch of stuff. First, we're going to make this use client, and we're going to import use state and use effect. Then we're going to be using our property card component to show the properties. And let's also import the spinner. And then let's also import toast. Okay, and then for as far as component state goes, we're going to have properties, set properties, use state, and that's going to be just an empty array by default. And then we're also going to have our loading. Set loading. Okay, so that's our component state. Now, to fetch the properties, we're going to use our use effect. So let's go right under the state, say use effect. Okay, and then let's create our function in here, our async function. We'll call this fetch saved properties. Okay, then we'll do try catch, and let's say const res. And if you guys want to pause the video and try this stuff, some of this stuff on your own, because a lot of it is pretty repetitive. We're just fetching from different routes. So if you want, you can, try it on your own. I mean, I always find that that's pretty good for learning and making things stick. So let's see, we're going to hit /API/bookmarks. It's going to be a GET request, so we don't have to pass in anything else. And then we'll check the status. So res.status, if that is equal to 200 and everything's okay, then let's get the data from wait res.json, and then set properties to the data. Okay, and then let's see, we're going to have an else here. So if it's not 200, then let's just do a console log, and I guess we'll just log, let's say res.status text, and then we'll do a toast.error and just say failed to fetch saved properties. Okay, and then in the catch, console log error, and we'll just do the same toast. Okay, and then let's see, for the loading, we're going to do a finally, and set loading to false. I never used to use finallys. I just started doing this. In the past, I would have done set loading in both the try and then in the catch, but I mean, this I think is a little bit, this is cleaner. So we have to call this function. I'm not going to forget this time. So let's say fetch save properties, and yeah, that should do it. Let's do a console log of properties. Open up our console, and looks like we have an array. There we go. So that's our one property that we have bookmarked. So next thing, obviously we want to display these. So down in the return, let's let's show the spinner if it's still loading. So we'll say if loading, then show spinner. Pass in loading to the spinner. Else. Now in the else, let's put some parentheses in here. So I do want to have like, let's go to the properties page.jsx because, well, actually no. Where do we have this? That's the home page. Properties, this one, page.jsx. So I basically want to do the same thing we did here. So I'm going to grab this and paste that section in there, and yeah, I think we're going to pretty much do the same thing. I'll add an H1 just to show it's the saved properties page. So under this div, let's say H1, and we'll say text dash 2XL and margin bottom 4, and we'll say saved properties. Okay, and it's just taking our properties from state. If there's none found, it'll say no, we'll say no saved properties. And then if there is, then we're going to loop through with map, and then show a property card for each one. So let's save that. There we go, Seaside Retreat. So if I go to another one, like Rustic Cabin in the Woods, and I bookmark it, okay, it's added. I go back to saved properties. Now that shows. Perfect. So that whole bookmarking and showing our saved properties, that's finished. If I were to go to Seaside and remove, and then go back to save properties, then it's gone. Cool. So in the next video, we're going to start to work on the share buttons.